Canadians over 65, almost 8% of them are living with dementia. And so, what we want to talk a little bit about today is how early planning can reduce the emotional financial burden on loved ones.
A lot of times people had this idea that, don't have all your eggs in one basket, thinking that if you're with multiple different institutions, that was diversification. However, it's not what it was coined for, that phrase.
The Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre said that seniors lost over $9 million to scams.
One of our clients had their bank account essentially wiped out with the idea of these scammers.
Some people are going to be luckier than others, but we want to make sure we're prepared either way.
Hey, Joseph, welcome back to another recording here today. How are you doing?
I'm good, Regan. How are you doing?
Not too bad. It's a start to a fresh week, and it's our busy time of year as RSP season is upon us, and then we enter into tax season, of course. But happy to be busy.
Yeah, it's always a good time of year for planning too. Lots going on. It's a new year. Lots of fresh ideas and goals. So lots to keep us busy, but it's also fun to come back to recordings. And one of the reasons I like doing this is it just kind of keeps us on top of things, right? With researching different topics and revisiting things. And so today we have maybe not the most fun topic to talk about, but it is reality and it's something that's important to address. And so that is just being prepared for cognitive decline in retirement. So Regan, you and I both have a lot of clients that are close to or in retirement. And they, as you get into retirement, you move past 65. I mean, the research shows that cognitive decline, it happens. And then for a lot of our clients too, who are pre-retirees, they might be dealing with this to a greater extent with their parents, right? So it's definitely something on, I'm sure, most of our listeners' radar one way or another.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right that at some stage you'll be dealing with this with either yourself or loved ones, like you had mentioned. And yeah, we do see that a lot where more and more I guess the kids of the parents are not necessarily taking over the finances, but they're, a bigger part in the planning process or in our meetings, essentially. And a lot of times the parents are leaning on their kids for advice or a nudge to move forward, or that, they're looking at them as a reliable source, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. There's two ways things can go, right? There could be overconfidence because they feel like they've always had it, they still got it. But it could also go the other way. It's just that they don't have the confidence that they're making the right decisions, and they want that reassurance from family members. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So if we look at some stats on this, Regan, Canadians over 65, almost 8% of them are living with dementia. And then the higher, we go in age, the more that rises. And so what we want to talk a little bit about today is how early planning can reduce the emotional financial burden on loved ones, right? Because this is really where this falls, is kind of what we're talking about. So maybe just a little more along those lines is that this probably isn't a big surprise, but Johns Hopkins has showed through some studies that retirees who have started to show cognitive decline are more apt to be missing bill payments and missing other things financially. And then the other one here is that there's actually a lot bigger risk of fraud as cognitive decline starts to kick in, right? So in 2024, the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre said that seniors lost over $9 million to scams.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a lot of money right there. And so the other thing that I thought was pretty interesting is the National Institute on Aging found that families without a clear plan spend an average of 20 or more hours per week managing the finances for loved ones with cognitive decline. So this isn't just about the individual with cognitive decline. It's their caregivers, their family, the people looking after them too. That's why we want to think about this ahead of time.
Yeah. And I think, it can start a lot sooner than later. I think with requirements of us having to ask our clients if they would like to have a trusted contact on their file is a good start, because oftentimes, if people, husband, wife couple, let's say, they're not at that stage yet, or they don't feel like it's necessary to have somebody on there as a trusted contact. But it's something that we'd be required to, continually follow up on and make sure that they don't. But that does open the door, I guess, for discussions around who might that person be, and just kind of, open the discussions essentially with the client.
Yeah, exactly. And there's a trusted contact person, and then there's also your power of attorney, right, for
Mhm.
property. And so these are two different roles. So I think maybe we can start by just talking about the differences. So the trusted
Mhm.
contact is going to be someone that your advisor institution can reach out to if they feel like there's some kind of issue, things just don't seem right, or they can't
Mhm.
get a hold of you. Or yeah, maybe there's a request for a big withdrawal that is uncharacteristic, right? And we're worried
Mhm.
about scams,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah.
So it's not someone that you can or an advisor could divulge any information to, like they're not taking directions or anything like that. It's really just someone that they can reach out to for like a wellness check, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas your power
Yeah.
of attorney is someone who, when you're unable to make those decisions, they're going to be able to step in and help take care of your financial affairs.
Yeah. 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 The trusted contact is merely it's just a point of contact for us in the event of, like you mentioned, if we felt that there was something not quite right, you could say. So yeah, two different roles, but again, both of those, having both those in place, so does, I guess, protect you in essence.
Yeah, for sure. So I think part of it is having those, conversations with family, friends, or whoever's going to fill those roles for you. So it's
Hmm.
one thing that you can do to be prepared. Another thing you can do is just simplify your financial life, right?
Hmm.
I don't know about you, Regan, but often people find us and maybe they've had an insurance advisor over here, they've had an investment advisor over there, and they've chased around some promotional rates at different banks, and so the next thing you know, by the time they come to find us, they have this financial house that has furniture that doesn't match the room, so to
Hmm.
speak. Is
Yeah.
kind of the way I
Yeah.
put it, right? So
Yeah.
multiple banks, multiple investment institutions, different insurance policies. And so, really, what you want to do is you want to figure out, like, where is the institution, where's the financial planner that you trust and are comfortable working with, and start consolidating it and simplifying your financial life.
Yeah.
Not only is it going to make your life easier, but if someone needs to step in, a power of attorney, to start taking
Yeah.
on some of this for you, then it's going to make their life a lot simpler. It's going to be a lot less of a time commitment to help take care of your affairs.
Yeah, absolutely. And further to that, like, I mean, this might be an episode on its own, but a lot of times people had this idea that, don't have all your eggs in one basket, thinking that if you're with multiple different institutions, that was diversification, essentially. However, that's not where it's not what it was coined for, that phrase. It meant that don't have all your investments in one particular investment, or stock, if you will, or one sector, or so on and so forth. It means that you'd have a diversified portfolio. So don't have all your eggs in one basket in a particular investment. And what people would often find is, if you did do consolidation reports, if you were through multiple different institutions with various different accounts, you'll often find that you have a lot of duplications, and also you'll find that there's a good chance that you're not a big client at any institution in that case, which would mean that your fees are probably going to be higher. Where consolidating, there's going to be the opportunity for a fee savings for
Yeah.
for the client.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned that. It's, in often cases, you said duplication, but you might actually run into the opposite of diversification. You might actually have less diversification because
Hmm.
your different institutions or advisors don't know what the other's doing,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
you're just overlapping. So that's a good
yeah,
point.
yeah,
Yeah. So you could save on fees. You could have a plan that actually all works together and coordinates. So that's all
yeah.
good, and your life's
And
simpler.
and as you know, a good competent advisory team can handle can handle all of the things that a client would have going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So
So simplifying your financial picture, consolidating your accounts, putting those trusted contacts, powers of attorney in place, and
mhm,
also, and this is, I'm sure you've seen this too, Regan, but from an estate planning standpoint, we see that there's two pieces of the puzzle. There's putting the pieces in place, but the second half of that is documenting everything so people
mhm,
know where things lie, what online accounts you have, passwords, all that kind of stuff. And so you can create. I know a lot of our clients like the paper and pen. So you can create a registry on paper and pen. We have a PDF version of that if anyone ever wanted it. But also, there's so many online resources and vaults now as well, right? So um, whatever your preferred method is, but it's documenting what your wishes are and having everything in a place that will be a lot easier for your family, or again, powers of attorney, whoever it is,
Yeah.
to find.
What are you referring to when you say wishes? Are you referring to like a will, or just like an additional supplemental document for your will?
Yeah, so your will's going to have your specific directions,
Hmm.
but outlining your wishes on things like maybe even like Facebook accounts, whether it's
Mm.
shutting it down or memorializing it, whatever you're doing, right? So
Yeah. Okay.
it would be like a separate document, but that also could be bypassed a little bit by having regular conversations with your family, right? We've talked about
Hmm.
those family conversations in the past
Yeah.
again.
Hmm.
And then beyond that, the documentation of, where are all your important documents, where are all your online passwords, and anything else that's going to have to be dealt with if you're unable to handle it on your own.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. Absolutely. The other thing that we were looking at here was, we talked about people being vulnerable, essentially for scams and things like that. Have you had to deal with much of that in your career with any clients?
No, we've been pretty lucky. We haven't. It's something we try to continuously communicate through our newsletter, just to kind of remind clients to not, jump in with 2 feet when they hear some kind of like a too good to be true offer or
Yeah.
family member trouble, things like that, right? So we just try to kind of communicate on that.
Yeah.
But again, as that cognitive decline sets in, it's definitely possible, and we know what happens. So I don't know. Have
Yeah.
you had to deal with it? With
I have a few times. I think, yeah, twice that come to mind. It's quite it's sad when it happens. One of our clients had their bank account essentially wiped out with the idea of these scammers. I guess we could call them, or criminals as well. We could call them. Convinced him that they'd save him on taxes, but he had to pay X amount of money, and however they did it, they ended up getting access to his account and drained out his account. Which, you know, it outside of the financial burden of that, or the financial um, yeah, loss, if you will, there also comes a leaving the client feeling very silly or stupid, for lack of better words, right? Where they feel like ashamed, I guess,
yeah,
to a degree.
yeah, I could see that for sure.
Yeah.
But it happens all the time, right? So like some of the common ones being like, and I get this all the time: fake CRA calls.
Yeah.
If you don't respond, we're gonna have to throw you in jail. Things like that, right?
Yeah.
Uh, Romance scams.
Which is probably one of the bigger ones, I believe. If I remember, I did a podcast on this a while back, like a couple years ago, maybe now. And I think at that particular moment in time, it was romance scams was the largest, like the most successful targets, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, no, I've heard that too. It's definitely a big thing, and then a lot of calls for people claiming to be your bank, right? Or saying you have bills outstanding or past due that you need to pay, and they get to call back
Hmm.
and talk to somebody.
Yeah.
So just some red flags. CRA will never threaten to throw you in
Yeah.
jail over unpaid taxes. They'll never demand any kind of payment through cryptocurrency or anything like that, right? You
Yeah.
should never give your social insurance number over the phone.
Yeah.
And there's some
They're not
tools.
going to text you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So one,
And,
one,
and also, you can always just check your CRA account if you ever do get something like that. First, go to your CRA account, log in there, and check your communications in there, and that's
yeah, that's a really
good.
good point. Everybody, I highly recommend everybody set up your MyCRA portal so
Hmm.
that you can go in and yeah, you'll know if there's anything outstanding, because you will get notifications directly into that portal,
Yep.
then it's from CRA, and it's a
Yeah.
pain to get in there because of there's no way even the same. Well, I guess in the same day maybe, but the double factor authentication, which I know is important. But anyway, my point is that if you get in there, it's real.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, keeping an eye on your credit score is also another way, just to make sure that nobody's stealing your identity or anything like that. So you can do that
Mhm.
through Equifax or TransUnion.
Hmm.
So that's just an easy way to make sure no one's out there, taking loans in your name or things like that.
Yeah. And there's also courses that you could take for just cybersecurity courses that are out there that are very helpful. Actually, like I'm sure you're required to do this training probably once a year at least, as am I. And yeah, they're definitely getting more sophisticated and clever with their their scams. So spending a half hour, 45 minutes on those on a course could be very beneficial.
Yeah, for sure. Education never
Mhm.
hurts. It's always very helpful.
Yeah.
Um, okay. And then, this is also where, and I'm sure this is the same with you again, Regan, but a big part of what we do as advisors is really helping families through these types of scenarios, right?
Hmm.
So, advisors help ensure your financial plan is accommodating these future potential cognitive declines,
Hmm.
right? And I say that potentially because some people are going to be luckier than others, but we want to make sure we're prepared either way.
Hmm.
So we mentioned earlier, one of the things is really just facilitating family conversations, ensuring that your powers of attorney and all your estate planning documents are in place. Um,
Hmm.
and then there's coordinating all of this, right? And you talked about it, Regan, where kids are getting more involved in meetings in a lot of cases for elderly clients. Um, and the other big one is also that I see is people have come, and I think we've talked about, why do do-it-yourselfers, for example, find an
Yeah.
advisor? And a lot of that is, they're worried about, well, if something happens to me or my cognitive health
Hmm.
declines, my spouse has never taken an interest and they
Yeah.
really don't want to be involved in this.
Hmm.
So it's just another kind of safeguard to make sure that if you have a trusted advisor, they can help with continuity of your planning if something were to happen to one spouse.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I see that actually quite a bit where um, one of the spouses, like you said, didn't take an interest in the finances, and then when the other spouse passes away, it becomes it's a big burden for them, and it's very overwhelming. And yeah, usually kids get involved at that point in time, and which is obviously necessary. And for myself, as clients, do get older, I do appreciate having the relationship with the family group, because a lot of times if we're going through recommendations or things like that, it's nice to be able to communicate it to the kids as well as to mom and dad, or mom or dad, just to make sure that you know it's clear essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, anytime you need to make any changes, um, but you feel like, yeah, your clients are having a little bit of difficulty understanding,
Mhm.
or you think they're understanding, it's often nice if you can get that, yeah, trusted contact or family
Yep.
member that they've okayed to be in there for sure.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. Yep.
All
Yeah.
right. Any final thoughts or key takeaways today, Regan?
That I think final thoughts are, it's hopefully it's not something that just happens overnight to an individual. So, it's nothing that usually is going to require actions right away as you start to get older, but it's just something to be aware of, I think, more so than anything. And then just having, I think the key things is having those power of attorneys and trusted contact people in place and documented on your accounts.
Absolutely. I think we can
Yeah.
leave it there. Thanks, Regan.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Take care. And yeah, we will talk to you soon.